stairs. We expect to see President Xi Jinping momentarily as well. This is an important moment in the U.S.-China relationship. These are the two greatest economic powers, Senator, right now. So in addition to the nuclear threat from North Korea, there are plenty of other trade-related economic issues on the agenda as well, right?
Oh, absolutely. Look, on the currency manipulation side, that's a real big issue. If you're going to manipulate your currency so that at the end of the day, it makes it more difficult for American companies to compete because of what you do in your currency, that's a real consequence. Looking at the consequences of intellectual property rights.
Senator, I'll interrupt for a moment. The President Xi Jinping and his wife now have just emerged from that Air China aircraft, and they're walking down the stairs, and they'll be received by an impressive U.S. delegation, Senator, including Secretary of State Rex Tillerson, who made his way down to Florida to receive the Chinese leader. President Trump will be down there, I suspect, within an hour or so. They'll have dinner tonight. So once again, I'm sorry for interrupting. I'll let you pick up your thought.
Well, I'm glad to see Secretary Tillerson actually at these meetings with world leaders and the president. It's very important that the Secretary of State be there. Look, on the question of our trade relationship, intellectual property rights. This is a continuing challenge with China. And this is where America leads in the world. Our creativity, our innovation from the high-tech field, from the pharma field, just to mention a few, biotechnology. We need to make sure that when Americans create things, that their intellectual property is preserved, that they get credited financially and otherwise.
Icebreaker type of talk. It's only 24 hours. He'll fly back out tomorrow night. And as we talked about earlier in this show, the guidance, the expectation from people inside and outside the administration is don't expect a big handshake at the end, some kind of big deal, for example, on North Korea or on a bilateral trade agreement. Instead, this is all about making sure these two leaders get off to a good start face-to-face personally and set the table for lower-level negotiations on the nitty-gritty down the road.
President Xi Jinping and Secretary of State Rex Tillerson there on the tarmac greeting. I have spilled into the 2 o'clock hour. My time here is done. Katie Tur standing by to pick up our continuing coverage.
And we are going to continue talking to Hallie Jackson over there down in Palm Beach as we watch President Xi Jinping of China meet Rex Tillerson, our Secretary of State, for the first time right there at the tarmac in Palm Beach. You can see them speaking to each other. The shot is breaking up. They're going to head from right there over to Mar-a-Lago, where the president of China will ultimately meet the president of the United States. Donald Trump in Air Force One right now on his way down to Palm Beach. Hallie Jackson, you're still with us. Talk to me about whether or not the past statements that Donald Trump made on the campaign trail, and you heard them just like I did. He was very forceful against China, very, at times even insulting against China, saying that we were on the bad end of a bad deal and that he would renegotiate them. Are those past statements threatening to disrupt this meeting or cast a cloud over this meeting?
It certainly, Katie, would have the potential for awkwardness, but I just spoke to one analyst who says, listen, President Xi is a diplomatic professional. He's done this before and has an understanding that that was during the campaign. This is now the real deal inside the administration. That said, it's not like you can go back and erase the things that Donald Trump said. Craig Zauer had a sort of montage of all of the hits that the president, then candidate Trump, had against China. Both of us heard him when we were out at those rallies, and they were big applause lines for the president. It was one of his favorite foils, really, not just for him, but for some of his top policy advisors as well, who talked frequently about, for example, what they called devaluation of currency by China, currency manipulation, issues with sort of the economic agreements that we've come up with China. In addition, now to this week, obviously the North Korean issue is back in the headlines again. That said, again, we can't emphasize enough how administration officials are saying this is about breaking the ice, right? It could potentially go badly if one of the men manages to offend the other, but at the same time, it is a fairly quick summit. There will be a lot of advisors present. We know that, for example, Steve Bannon, Reince Priebus, Stephen Miller are on the plane now with President Trump as he gets ready to come down and greet President Xi. As we look at, I believe that's Secretary of State Rex Tillerson there. My monitor's got a bit of a glare.
It is. You're right, Hallie. Don't worry.
The Secretary of State Thanks, Katie. Well, you know how it is, looking into the lights. The Secretary of State should come over and potentially talk with reporters. So we will see, with so many international issues in the headlines right now, what he discusses. You've got Syria, you've got China, you've got fallout with Russia, for example, as well, Katie.
And Hallie, talk to me a little bit more about Rex Tillerson. We do expect him to talk about Syria and Assad, correct? And whether or not the United States has a response to what happened. We do have new reporting, and Hans Nichols will join us soon to talk about this, that tells us that the U.S., the military, was able to watch on the radar as a Syrian jet flew over and dropped a chemical bomb onto the Idlib region, which we saw the aftermath of, and we've been monitoring now for the past few days, which reportedly killed more than 100, and that does include many children with that, what looks to be, at least as of now, according to reports, sarin gas, a nerve agent. Do we expect to hear Rex Tillerson expand more than he has before? The other day, last week, when he was asked about Syria, he said, and I'm sure you remember this, that Assad will be left up to the Syrian people, which is counter to what years of U.S. policy had been, which was that Assad needed to go.
Right, explicit U.S. policy. Listen, those comments by Rex Tillerson appear to be superseded by what we heard from President Trump himself in the Rose Garden, in which he did not explicitly say that Bashar al-Assad must go. He did not explicitly say that the U.S. would take military action. He did not shut the door on either of those options as well. We know you asked about Rex Tillerson and what he might speak about. We know that the president is clearly horrified by what you are talking about, these images that have been so powerful that Nikki Haley held up at the UN Security Council meeting of children killed by this chemical weapons attack. That has touched a nerve with President Trump. The question,
if they don't, it'll be bad for everyone. You know, we've heard recently that the way North Korea is moving along, that by the end of President Trump's term, that they will have the ability to launch a nuclear weapon to Seattle. That's scary stuff.
Oh, I think they're both at the forefront, and obviously the president is very concerned about North Korea. You've seen that in the comments he's made, and I think this will be a very important meeting for he and President Xi to talk about the implications of North Korea if they continue to be as aggressive as they have been in expanding their nuclear capabilities.
Moving on to one of the other big topics of the day, of course, I want to get your reaction to the latest developments in that probe to look into Russia's interference in our elections, and also where it has put Susan Rice in the hot seat in terms of who unmasked various names and how those got out into the public. What do you think is the next step there?
Well, Susan Rice has a credibility issue, and we saw it with the death of the U.S. Ambassador Chris Stevens when she went on TV and said that his death was elicited by a video and a spontaneous demonstration. We know that that was not the truth, that it was a terrorist attack, it was coordinated, and now we've seen her reverse positions on the unmasking. And we need to see her go under oath and testify so that we can find the truth as to what she knew, why she unmasked certain individuals, how many were, and if she knows anything about the leaks.
Yeah. I mean, there are so many important issues that are underneath all of this fighting we've been seeing. I mean, prominent among them is Russia's meddling. You know, we have to get to the bottom of how that happened and stop it from happening again. At the same time, there are these lingering questions about eavesdropping and about you know, a surveillance overstepping. How much of this was really incidental? I mean, these are two very important separate issues that kind of seem to get lost in the political fighting. How can we make sure that both get answered without politics getting in the way at this point?
Well, I think you've seen the intelligence committees in both the Senate and the House take this very seriously. If we had an Obama official potentially unmasking civilians in intelligence reports, that is a deep problem if she did it for political purposes. So we need to get to the bottom of that. We also need to figure out why Russia was meddling with the election. All of these things are critical, and I have faith in the intelligence committees to investigate this and get to the bottom of that and present that to the American people.
All right, RNC Chair Ronna McDaniel, thank you for your time today. We appreciate it.